What's up, guys? You're listening to the Colorado Cars and Coffee podcast with me, John, Steve, Terry, Alex, Matt, and Dan. Let's drive straight to our breakfast menu of events. This week's events are Sonic. We have Toys for Tots in Golden, Colorado.
And Saturday we have, what's canceled is Lafayette Cars and Coffee up in Lafayette at the Flatirons Church. That's been canceled. Don't go.
There's a Chrome and Brews car show in Florida.
Yeah, that's on Saturday. And then Saturday as well, Lone Tree Cars and Coffee, which is going to be at Cornerstone Church in Lone Tree.
On Saturday as well, 303 Outlaws will be having their last car cruise and meet of the year, so definitely get a chance to go.
Another one on Saturday, Steamboat Cars and Coffee in Steamboat.
And two that we have both on Sunday. Looks like tribute to all first responders, healthcare workers in Littleton, Colorado, and a veteran 100th birthday parade on Laurie Boulevard in Denver. Let's just move on to our topics now.
Just one go by, because I'll just do that to you, John. Sonic Toys for Tots. We are starting Friday. We're going to ask everyone to bring a new unwrapped toy to the Sonic events. So throughout October and November, if you can, go ahead and bring in a new unwrapped toy, and we'll give that to Toys for Tots. So we'll announce who the admin is and what their card there is, so you can provide that. So during this next 2 months, go ahead and bring out a toy. We'd love to see that. We just want to help out the kids. This year has been terrible, so let's make it as good for the kids as we can. And then there was one other thing. Let's see. Oh, for the events, to get more information, head over to our Facebook group and look for the events tab. That'll have all the details. We also often have a post up on IG, which has more details, but the most information will come on the Facebook group. Thanks, John. And Matt, you have something?
Yeah, do we want to say something about Adams? Was that supposed to be this weekend and it got canceled?
Yeah, we announced that.
Yeah, Steve said don't turn up. So
yeah, Lafayette Cars and Coffee is.
Oh,
Adams.
that's Adams.
That's Adams. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, John, for the extra time.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll just move on to topics now. I think I'll have you guys take over with Lemans. You guys are a little more knowledgeable about it, so I'll let one of you guys take off from there.
Yeah, I'll go with that real quick. Of course, last weekend was the 24-hour Le Mans. There's going to be some changes coming, so they're introducing a new hypercar class, which is going to replace the LMP1 class, etc. But for me, one of the most intriguing parts is going to be in 2022 is when Peugeot is actually going to be returning back to Le Mans racing with a hydrogen-powered car. So I just find that very intriguing to see the next step in, because moving into hydrogen fuel cells, etc. It's going to be very interesting. And also the simple reason we look back when Audi was extremely dominant in Le Mans, and yes, some people are going to bring up, well, Volkswagen cheated on their emissions. Yeah, they did, and they got busted, and they got a lot of money charged to them. Is that really put forward a lot of turbo diesel refinements, and just expanding that technology out to as far as humanly possible. So now I'm curious to see, now you got to get into hydrogen fuel cells within endurance racing. How is that going to affect that technology lower down to the market, to your everyday car? I found that very intriguing. And just before Alex jumps in, because he's also big into Le Mans, with that new class of the hypercars, Toyota Gazoo Racing has already said they're going to go into it. Aston Martin's getting into it. There's going to be a number of teams to see, and these are supposed to be based off production hypercars. Got to have at least 20 to be able to actually physically, compete. I'm curious to see what that's going to be like, because I know a lot of us are used to the LMP1, LMP2, etc. To see how is that really going to take off within Le Mans. So it's just interesting to me. But the biggest point for me is definitely the hydrogen. Alex?
Terry, 2 questions.
Yeah.
Hypercar, is that a new class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's a new class.
And
It's just replacing.
big question about the hydrogen. What's the range on a Le Mans race car? Because that's just 24 hours, right?
Yeah, it's 24-hour
So
race.
what's the normal range for a hydrogen powered car?
No
Do we know?
idea on the Peugeot because they've tested it a couple of times. It's
Okay.
interesting to do, and plus, technically, you have to refuel. And also, if they're going to include the rules which they currently have now, like for Toyota in the LMP1 class, for the hybrid, and I'm trying to go off memory, they had to refuel after it was like 14 laps to basically get a balance of power against the other LMP1s that were naturally aspirated. So they do that kind of stuff. So there's always refueling, there's pit stops, etc., etc. If they look at it that way and say, okay, well, should we carry on these rules of mandatory pit stop after X amount of laps because we want to do the balance of power? So I don't think the range is really going to come into it per se, for the simple reason they're going to force pit stops.
Alex, maybe do we know if this is liquid hydrogen that you dump in, or what's the refueling process?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the point I was going to touch on is the technology is so interesting because it's so different. And I don't think you can't just go from pouring gasoline into a motor to pouring liquid hydrogen into a motor. Just the logistics and the pit changes, the technology changes, what? Are they just going to swap out actual fuel cells, full, tanks, or do they compress it down into a liquid? I don't know what the details are of that, and it's really interesting. All that really flies into reliability of these cars, which is so crucial in the 24-hour races. If you're doing a couple different pit stops and you have to refuel with a brand new technology, that's a little more complicated than what you're used to. Throws some fun wrinkles into things. I'm really excited to see what happens and to see if they can get that technology to a place where they can race competitively.
So
Totally understand.
Terry, the hydrogen powered, would that be its own class? Is it a special class?
No, that's part of the hypercar class. So the same principle that was involved with hybrid in LMP1 and non-hybrid LMP1, it's going to be the same thing, essentially, right there. So it's just going to be part of the hypercar class. It's not a separate class. It's just Peugeot has chosen to go the hydrogen powered route as an ultimate technology.
What's their definition for a hypercar? Like how are they?
Probably speed.
Yeah, basically, it's the same principle that's like you have hypercars now.
Right.
Okay, so if you look at Bugatti, it's classified a hypercar.
Sure.
Just like the new Aston Martin Valkyrie, that's a hypercar, and so they're going to enter that car into the hypercar class. So it's going to look like that car, just like NASCAR. It has to resemble a production car.
Right. Homologation,
So
your favorite
yes,
word.
Exactly. Homologation, everybody's favorite word. So that's all they're going to do. To be based on there. The interesting thing is with the Peugeot, if you look at some of the shots of it, online, I'm just wondering, are they really going to build a hypercar for it in that regard? Because it'll be really interesting to see. And it's not going to come down to how it's powered. So it's not going to be a regulation basically saying, well, if you're racing a hydrogen-powered hypercar in this class, that means your 20-car homologation has to be high. It's not going to be that.
Does Peugeot have a hypercar?
No.
No,
So they would have to make one?
Yeah, they have to make 20 of them. But the whole thing is you're just making 20.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all you're doing. You make 20 cars to say, well, we made 20 cars. Did you sell any? 20 cars.
It's a pretty interesting class. It sounds like hypercar would be the fastest on the track too, but they're actually, I think they're going to be relatively slower compared to like LMP1 and 2. The power limitation for the spec for the hypercar class is 500 kilowatts or 670 horsepower.
Yeah.
And the weight minimum is 1,030 kilograms. Just over a ton. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably be faster than some of the GTs, but they're it's just a unique class. They're not exactly like upping the maximum spec or maximum performance. Just something new, really.
Yes, exactly.
To kind of put it into perspective, I know it's not one of the major runners, but looking at Hyperion, their XP-1 hypercar. So currently, their idea is that the vehicle isn't going to be packed with lithium-ion cells. It's going to be powered by a fuel cell, and its job is to give hydrogen a halo effect. And on top of that, the numbers it's putting up right now is 0 to 60 in 2.2, a top speed of 221 miles an hour, and a range of 1,016 miles. Now, don't know if that's full out. So if you're doing track, obviously it's going to go down. We all know that. But as you're talking the weight's pretty important as to what you just said. The weight is going to be 1,031 kilograms, so it would qualify for that class.
So it will be interesting to see which way they're going to go. I mean, there's a lot of articles out there on it. We do definitely suggest you go and read a lot because that's what I'd be doing. Just trying to catch up. I didn't see anything on how the refueling is going to be, so it's something to touch on. But it's definitely going to be interesting. Basically, it's the new rules. Peugeot's entering in 2022. That's when they're going to be ready to go. But basically, next year, you're going to see a hypercar class with Toyota, Aston Martin. I can't remember the other ones that are actually doing it. I can find it real quick. But yeah, so that's what you're looking at.
Terry, Alex, anything more on Le Mans cars racing?
I don't think so. Just excited to see a new class and something fun and exciting and new technology.
Yeah, straight out. And honestly, the last race, I mean, when you only have one hybrid car running in the last couple of years, which is Toyota, it's like, wow, Toyota's going to win it again. You kind of when I was watching it, I was really, really hoping both of them would break down. Because it would be nice to see a naturally aspirated LMP1 car win the overall. It just didn't happen, which kind of sucks, to be honest with you. Yeah, my only takeaway from this race was it was pretty competitive in the GT Le Mans class. Aston Martin and Ferrari really kind of battled from the very beginning. It was really interesting to see because usually it's a very strategy game because it has to be. It's 24 hours, but they were really racing each other, and it was really interesting to watch. That was fun for me. That was kind of fun, especially the fact that Aston Martin last year was kind of screwed over by the balance of power. They had a very good car that was just basically when they do the balance of power, they add more weight and other things to kind of try to equal it. And there's a lot of sandbagging technically that goes on because they look at the qualifying and all that stuff and say, oh, you're faster than, the Porsches and such. So, it's good to see that. That's my only takeaway from this race. It was nice to see some really good competitive GT racing.
Was the Ford GT in the race?
No. Actually, the Ford GT, they're done. They accomplished their goal and they're done. Okay. And Corvette Racing wasn't there. Only reason why Corvette Racing wasn't there is because it was going to be held in June. It got postponed into September, and Corvette Racing already had its obligations because it's the IMSA Racing as well, the WEC, so they're already committed, so they couldn't free up to go to Le Mans. That was disappointing, to be honest with you, because there's something about this big, the V8 Corvettes going around that kind of gives you an interesting sound, and it would have been nice to see the new C8, again.
The new
yeah.
C8
yes, yeah. So disappointing, yes, but they ran the ball, and it was good. The announcing sucked, but it was good. So there you go. Yep.
Yeah, those GT class cars are generally right now like the 488s, Vantage, Aston Martin's Vantage, and then of course 911s all over the place.
Yeah.
Those are the three big GT. There's a couple weird ones mixed in, but those are basically it.
Yeah.
How many cars normally enter Le Mans? Total.
Geez, I don't know. It's a lot.
Honestly, on average, there's usually between 8 to 10 per class, and you have LMP. LMP1 is one. Okay, in LMP1 there was only 8. There was like the 2 Toyotas, and then the rest were just naturally aspirated. And LMP2, I think there was about maybe 10 or 16. I don't count. I just watched the race. And then GT was, I think, about 10. GT AM, which is professional amateur, was probably about 10.
It's over 50 for sure.
Yeah. So it's all who was there. And usually it's bigger. So this one, it wasn't as big because you're missing certain teams that pulled out because they're done. Ford, BMW, etc. Corvette Racing wasn't there, and they usually run 2 cars.
So affected by COVID again,
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you have amateur teams that are in there, which is the privateers. Next year brings. Okay, excellent. I think we can wrap up Le Mans for our happy people.
Okay. You guys wanted to talk about F1?
Yeah, I'll let Alex go.
Yeah, I really just wanted to talk about it to make fun of Carlos Sainz this last weekend in Russia. Man, I mean, so Russia, I don't know, for the last 3 or 4 years or something, the first lap has been a disaster on every single race. I think it's fun for the fans. I don't know that I love it all that much. I generally would like to see clean starts. I'm not a big NASCAR bang them all up kind of person. But man, it was shit show this race again. And especially Carlos Sainz. So there was turn, was it 2, 4, 2?
Your turn. Turn 2.
Turn 2, if it's a weird one, and if you miss it, you had to go through some bollards. And Sainz missed the turn, and I don't know how to explain this without going to see a video. Go check out the video of it. Carlos Sainz crash in Russia. He just didn't turn enough. Like a person would hit a curb or something. He just smacked the wall and completely destroyed himself in the second turn of the race.
Yeah.
He's headed to Ferrari next year. So I don't know if Ferrari's gonna be back in competition anytime soon.
Well, with their change of engine from last year, Ferrari's going to take a couple of years for Ferrari to get back. Yeah, when you've been in F1 since the beginning, you get to do certain things, and then the FIA says you can't do that, and they don't say why. It's fine. You're Ferrari. So yeah, that was an amusing thing to watch, definitely, because it was a misjudge going through the bollards, and totally took out. It was fun, and consequences of that were a couple of cars ran into a couple of things. So it was there for me. I will touch on Lewis Hamilton's 2 5-second penalties for basically going and doing practice starts, what the FIA considered were outside of the area that you're allowed to do practice starts. They had that in the pre-race notes, etc. I've never seen the pre-race notes. I have no idea exactly what they say. I'm just going to go off the fact that this has been done before. These practice starts happen. It just seems interesting that he got 2 5-second penalties for 2 infractions of that. They also wanted to give him 2 penalty points against the super license, which brought him up to 10. You get 12 in a calendar, in a 12-month period. You get a race suspension, etc. So he was really close to being that. They did reverse the penalty points because what they said was because he was given instructions by the team to do that, he didn't intentionally do that. That was the team telling him bad information, so he can't be punished for that, but they're going to fine the team, but he's still going to get hit with a 10-second penalty, of course. I don't know what this race notes say. I just think it's kind of interesting that came up, because usually you kind of do that stuff, and it doesn't matter what racetrack you're on. If you're going to go try and get yourself clear within that pit lane exit and, beyond what they were saying, my understanding was beyond the green light, still within, the area of here, off the race line, et cetera, they all do it. But nobody's seen they got penalized until Russia. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to ingest that and say they're out to get Lewis. I just think it's just interesting that they chose that moment to say, oh, hey, this is what it is. I was disappointed by that because the simple reason he had such a bad qualifying, it was amazing, really bad. because track limits, they are enforcing track limits, which is amazing because they haven't done that in quite a few years, where they kind of turned a blind eye. Now they're really doing it, and it's making the racing better because you're getting times deleted in qualifying because you're exceeding the track limit. So now you got to
What do you mean by that, Terry? Just to explain.
What, track limits?
Yeah.
Okay, simple as that. There's a white line on the track. Can't go over it with all four wheels. There it is. That's track limits. It's staying within the racetrack.
Can you get 2 wheels over?
All 4 wheels cannot be over what's considered track limit.
3 okay?
No.
3's okay.
3's okay.
Again, all 4 wheels cannot be over the line.
5.
So I think 5 wheels.
You know what? Just so we all understand, Steve hates F1 because he's an uneducated person. I took him to an F1 race. He cried like a baby because Taylor Swift would not date him, and he tried really hard.
I couldn't go to sleep that night. I was so excited about
we all had that night.
The F1
so
race.
Basically, they're enforcing that, which is good. And when Lewis was trying to qualify, he had went off track and had times deleted. And because of that, there's strategy. It's essentially here in if you make it the Q2, the second qualifying round, the fastest time you set on the tires are the tires you start the race with. Mercedes' strategy was to get both drivers starting on the medium compound, tire. Because Lewis had to run again, they switched into a soft compound, which doesn't last as long during the race, which changes your strategy. Even though he had pole, there's undercut possibilities by not only his teammate, but also by Red Bull Racing, etc. So I wanted to see how that was going to play out, and that was kind of taken away because of the 10-second penalties. But Alex, what do you got on that?
I think everything you just mentioned kind of loops into the same theme. This race and this track, for some reason, this weekend, I think the stewards decided this was going to be the track that they put their foot down and kind of overcompensated to establish those limits. It's like you watch like a basketball game or a hockey game or football or something like that. If some shit starts and like people start kind of shoving and fighting, the refs just kind of eject somebody right away. And it's like, what the hell? And like, this was that, I think. It's just, people have been testing these. Yeah. People have been testing these limits of what the stewards will let them do for so long now. I think this was the race that they're like, we're not putting up with any crap anymore. We're going to penalize everything we see the entire weekend. And, I get it. With modern tracks, the runoffs are so much bigger for safety reasons, but drivers are taking some wild advantages there. So I don't really blame them for putting their foot down, but it made for one weird race this weekend.
Yeah, it definitely did. And that's my thing. I'm just disappointed because I would like to have seen how Mercedes and Lewis could have handled the fact that he started the race on soft tires and everybody else behind it was on medium compound. And it would have been interesting. He got a 10-second penalty. He still finished third. So it wasn't disastrous per se, but I'm really happy they're enforcing track limits because it really makes the race better, because it makes qualifying much better and more interesting, because now if you go off that track, that fast time is gone, and now you got to burn your tires or your strategy changes because we only have X amount of tires, because it's the same thing with any racing. There's a certain allocation of tires. The difference is the drivers themselves can dictate how many of each compound total they're going to bring to that race. But that decision's made weeks in advance. It's based on historical data. Say, well, it's this time of the month and this is what the track is. So I'm Lewis Hamilton. I know that soft tires are better on this track. I'll have more soft tires than this, but it's kind of fun when they screw up, because now they're like, shit, I don't have any soft tires left. But yeah, that was kind of fun. Just to move in really quickly is just interested if anybody else follows, with Sergio Perez leaving Racing Point, and essentially they're bringing in Sebastian Vettel, who is currently is the Ferrari driver, number one driver, you could say, which is really not true anymore. 4-time world champion. He's had a bad year. He had a bad year last year. He had a bad year the year before. This year is really horrible for him. That Ferrari's just not performing yet. Charles Leclerc, who's his teammate and essentially the second guy, is just outperforming him endlessly. So essentially, Ferrari let him go, and he's got to go to Racing Point, which means Checo is now gone. And I think Checo is a really good driver. I don't think they should have got rid of him. I think they should have got rid of Lance Stroll, not because Lance Stroll's terrible, because I just think, yeah, his father owns the team, fine, but I say you keep Checo.
Terry, is Racing Point another team? Or
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all.
No,
yeah.
I didn't know if it was like
well, yeah, because you remember those horrible
an F1
cars?
TV channel or something, or
No,
Racing Point.
Racing Point, which used to be Force India, which used to be something else,
Marussia.
Yeah, Marussia. That used to be something else.
And do they what cars or makes brands do they race?
It's not makes or brands when it comes to F1. So it's essentially they design their own chassis. That's the thing about F1. You design your own aero. You have to follow certain rules, and then you either partner up with an engine manufacturer, which Racing Point is powered by Mercedes. Alfa Romeo, believe it or not, is powered by Ferrari. Haas Racing, which is the American team, is powered by Ferrari. And then you've got McLaren, which right now is powered by Renault, which next year will be powered by Mercedes. Then you have Renault, which, believe it or not, is powered by Renault. Okay. And then what's the other one there? We've got...
Well,
yeah.
Or also Alpha
which is Honda powered. So that's what you have. Yeah. So that's essentially how it works. So just getting back on the point of, I just don't think they should get rid of Checo. I think Lance Stroll could probably find another home, another seat, maybe Haas, maybe even into Alfa Romeo or something like that. But I understand why they're bringing in Vettel, 4-time world champion. And Racing Point is getting very competitive. We won't touch on it here, but if you read some of the articles, that technically it's the copy or a very well done extension of last year's Mercedes. So it's really got great downforce. It's got good power, so it is a definite competitor. Vettel can bring a lot of his experience to it, not like win races with it and win world championships, but get them to the next point to say, hey, when I was at Red Bull Racing, or when I was actually at Toro Rosso when I started my career, and won my first, basically, Toro Rosso's first victory was at Monza with Sebastian Vettel. It brought that team up because there's little things. So he can do that and bring that team to the next level. So that's why they did it. And of course, just to confuse everybody, Racing Point's changing their name next year to Aston Martin Racing. Which is no longer going to be a Red Bull, because Red Bull is considered Red Bull Racing Aston Martin, because that's their partnership. But that's going to go away. But that's the very quick point. See if anybody thinks about Checo going, because I think he should stay.
Will Vettel be Racing Point's top driver?
So depending on what teams, how they work, a lot of teams don't say they have a number 1 or number 2 driver.
Okay.
You'll find out 4 races in. A lot of it is, there's things that you do in F1. Number 1 is don't crash the effing car. Finish the car. Finish the race. Beat your teammate. Out-qualify your teammate. Outperform your teammate in free practice. And bring the car home and get points. That's it. Alex, go.
Yeah, in case you didn't pick up on it, Steve, the other driver at Racing Point is the owner of the team's son.
Yeah.
Number 1, number 2 driver kind of thing is a little sticky situation there for them.
Because in theory, Checo was the number 1 driver, but it's really Lance.
Well, to Lance's credit, he's actually
doing good.
Outperformed him for most of the season. So I mean, it's not like a complete you're a terrible driver and you're just funding, like Nicholas Latifi and Williams. You're a terrible driver. You're just bringing in some money so you get a seat. He's a decent driver. It seems like.
Yes.
I think he's just maybe a little early for him, but.
And I think it's important to know that.
So I barely know anything about this, so I'll ask the dumb questions.
Yeah, I know. You should. I took you to a race.
Yeah, I'm an expert now. With Vettel moving to Racing Point, does that mean Leclerc moves up to
So
top driver?
Ferrari
He already
is notorious for not really saying who their number 1 and number 2 driver is. They just demonstrate who it is by what they do. Okay, so Leclerc is, Leclerc right now, yes, he's the number 1 driver, and he will be considered the number 1 driver because he's up and coming. He's a Ferrari, he was a Ferrari prospect driver, and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely. If he starts failing miserably, they will just, like they did with Vettel, they will just disown him, and they will pit each part of their philosophy. If you just know it, they love pitting both drivers against each other, and they love dumping pressure on you. And on top of it, it's Ferrari, so the Italian press is notoriously harsh, no matter what. It is literally like, if you go to Monza and you're driving a Ferrari and you don't win, oh boy, it's huge. It's huge. And then the fan base, which is essentially the Tifosi, they're very passionate. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, but that's the driver. I'm a huge Ferrari fan, massive, always happy. I love watching Ferraris race, but I don't stick to that normal rule of, well, you're a Ferrari fan, so it's always Ferrari. It must be all the drivers in Ferrari. No, because I think Lewis Hamilton's a hell of a great race car driver. I mean, he's about to...
best ever.
Yes. So it's going to happen. I kind of look at both things. It's the team and it's a driver to me. It's two things. Leclerc would be considered the number 1 driver. And then we'll see what they do next year, because they got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do.
Matt, Dan, John, you guys got any F1 questions? I don't want to be the only one asking dumb questions. I want some other people ask dumb questions too.
F1 is completely foreign to me. I mean, I've watched it, but I'm just like, oh, this is cool. So just listening to you guys talk about it, it's actually very, very in depth.
So you're saying they don't use boxer engines in F1?
Unfortunately, they don't, because we just see lots of flying pistons and rods and
Blowhead gaskets.
Well, that's a given.
John, what about you? Anything?
Kind of in the same spot. I am interested in watching it, learning about it. I just don't know enough about it. Between work, photography, podcasts,
Yeah.
haven't really had time to sit down and watch.
It's not easy to watch the U.S. particularly either. I mean, it's easier now. They're mostly televised, and now you can buy the F1 TV subscription, which helps out a lot. But races are 6 or 7 a.m. On a Sunday. Some people aren't up at that point. And yeah, up until, was it 3-4 seasons ago, Terry, that they signed a contract with the U.S. cable company. They didn't even televise them really. So.
Well, yeah. Well, before ESPN took over, it was on NBC Sports Network, which I watched for a long time. Then a contract went away. Then ESPN took it back. So I think it's like the last 10 years you were able to watch it over here, maybe a little bit. I used to do streams and stuff like that until I realized, oh, holy shit, NBCSN has it. So why am I getting streams? And to everybody's point here, apart from Alex and I who just watch it, I have the advantage. I grew up in England. So this is the F1 racing was it. And that's what we watched. And then, of course, nothing's more fun than V8 British Super, like cars going around the track, which is amazing too. Kind of stuff like that. So I know a little bit more about F1 than most people. Not super detailed in depth. I just know what I like, and I've always liked F1. So
yeah, definitely. Me growing up, it was NASCAR. It was Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt,
right?
All those guys, and
yeah. I grew up in Indiana, so Indy was.
So what does that mean?
Indy cars.
Whoa. No, well, yeah. IndyCar's big. IndyCar and NASCAR were real big.
Yeah.
But that was it.
I was raised watching Ken Block tear it up.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's where I was mostly at. That and rally videos, WRC.
Well, that was televised in England every Saturday. It was great. Because I got to see all that stuff. It was really kind of fun.
They have a WRC streaming service now too that
Yeah.
I also give money to. That's a great thing to watch as well.
So you should, because Rally is amazing.
Rally's fun to watch.
Rally's
Oh, yeah.
great. Just
That's one I've gotten into recently, and I'm glad that I did.
It's phenomenal.
The technical skill involved. That's
absolutely.
That's the thing. And it's intriguing to watch them go, and listening to the co-driver give those, nav, directions, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, I don't know. I kind of just get a kick out of watching that and hearing that, and just how precise they are, and how just so much dedication to what they need to do, and the concentration level. And back in the day when I watched it, you had the crowds literally within inches of the cars.
Yeah, I've seen videos where people get taken out by the cars. Yeah.
It's just like, I look at that and I just go, geez, here it is, 1982, and you're driving a Quattro, and you've got like 150 fans lining the road, and if you make a millimeter mistake, you're taking them all out. That level of concentration has always been amazing to me. So yeah,
Group B.
Group B, greatest
Group B was
rally ever.
gangster.
It's great, unrestricted craziness, and that's where you get a lot of fun cars out of.
Terry, did you ever make it out to a Group B race?
Yep.
Did you?
I did.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
When I was a youngster, we went, and I was on vacation in Spain, and there was one there. So we ran into it, and I conned my old man into going, this is great, let's watch this. So my father kind of liked racing, but he never fully admitted to it. It was very interesting. So, I would watch F1, and he would sit there and watch it with me. Then after it was done, he'd go, I don't know why you're watching this. I'm like, yeah, dude, you watched 2.5 hours of this with me, so stop lying. Enough. But yeah, I did get out to see that. So if nobody's really got into rally, I say check it out. It's amazing.
There's a U.S. rally too, and there's an event in Ohio, Michigan. I don't know about out here near Colorado, but yeah, I've been to the snow rally in Michigan a couple times before, and
nice.
That's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Colorado does have a rally events out in Rangeley. It's quite a ways. It's like hours west of us. But I mean, it was pretty cool. I actually shot photos there. I really like that one.
Nice. So yeah, I do believe we can, unless we got anything more that we want to bring up on F1. I think I'll skip the other one.
I think that wraps up our racing segment.
Yeah, our quick little racing segment. So yeah.
I know you've been wanting to do that segment for a while, so
I know he's been burning, so that's good. That's good.
Well, the whole point is, it's like, there's things out there that we need to talk about, and one of them is definitely racing.
Sure, absolutely.
And Steve's fascination with Taylor Swift.
Don't tell everybody.
Oh, I just did. Turn 12 food truck. Poor Steve sitting there waiting. She never turned up.
Poor Steve.
It's okay.
Moving on.
Yeah, I guess we'll move on to post of the week. Post of the week. So off of Instagram of the week. Do you guys? I don't know if we had anything for that. I know it looks like we have electric car post. The 300 comments.
Yeah, I'll talk about that one real quick, and then Alex is next. So I found just a Car and Driver article about California is planning to ban the sale of new gasoline vehicles starting in 2035. And so I just posted up the question on the group, hey, is this coming to Colorado, and what do you think? I did ask for people to keep their comments professional, and 98% to 99% of the folks did keep their comments professional. A few did not. A few had to exit the group based on this one post, but that's up to them. You're responsible for your behavior on the group, and we follow that. We watch that closely. But 300 comments, a lot of good discussion, both pro and con, and it was pretty interesting thread. I enjoyed reading it. Alex.
Yeah, I'll comment real quick on the electric thing too. I just think it's an interesting conversation. I feel like we've seen this coming for a while, right? We've always talked about like it's just going to happen someday
Mm-hmm.
that the toys that we love so much all the time are going to start being unraveled. I don't know that I really was ready for it that soon. Didn't feel that soon, 15 years from now, but it is kind of pretty soon.
Well, we're seeing more and more advantages of electric every day.
Yeah.
We know the infrastructure has to grow. We know that the range has to increase. But once they get those technical hurdles over, there's just a lot of advantages to electric.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think from a daily driver standpoint, there's almost no reason to stick with gas powered engines. Now, obviously, for weekend enthusiasts, there's always going to be.
Matt was very quick to say daily driver. Yeah, caveat that. Right, that's true.
What do you
Would
mean?
we consider
Yeah.
would we consider the electric car the fun car that we would go to also on the weekend, or we
Could be.
save
Yeah, I
that
mean, it
for
could.
our
Yeah. But
our
I think the biggest thing is they're
Subaru-
going to be
Subarus?
pushed for. They're going to be pushed for your
Dan, you awake?
comfort sedans. I don't think you'll see.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm letting y'all have your piece. Just listening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
think
definitely performance aspects of it, but
right.
I think the daily drivability of them right now is the biggest.
I think I need to see more manufacturers bring out. Right now, all we can really think about is maybe the Mustang Mach-E. I mean, you don't really see anything coming from Subaru or anything like that. There is that new Tesla that came out. I think it's called the Plaid Edition. I don't know why they named it that, but it's supposed to have 3 motors in it, and it's supposed to pump out like 1,000 horsepower.
I don't think that's out yet. I think it's coming.
Okay, all right.
I've
yeah,
heard
that'll
of
be
certainly get the performance out of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I've heard of the Rivian truck or SUV.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of the Rivian?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Can't
company
say
though.
that.
That's not Tesla, right? That's a separate company.
Not
Yeah,
Tesla.
separate.
Not Tesla.
Yeah, Rivian's a separate company. That's what I thought. Yeah, it's funny. You see these, you see how these companies pop up for electric vehicles, and then they seem to dissolve as quickly as they form. And I've read some interesting stuff on that. It has to do with the way that they structure their business models, and they try too hard to be automotive companies when, if you look at it, Tesla's not necessarily an automotive company at their core. They're a technology company. So their innovation is what drives them, and software and innovation. It's just kind of interesting to see.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I think the biggest issue right now is buy-in from the major manufacturers, right? So they don't want to hit their bottom line of stockholders, right? Because anytime they're going to shift, that's going to have bounding effects throughout the economy, right? So if all these major manufacturers start shifting to only electrical, right? What's that going to do to the whole petroleum trade, right? How's that going to affect that? And then based off that, how's that going to affect jobs? How's that going to affect the economy? Will they have the jobs already lined up to produce those resources for those new vehicles? So it's not just a simple, oh, this is why we need to do it. Well, it's not so black and white, right? Because there's a bunch of trickle down effect that unfortunately accompanies it.
Be a gradual change. Yeah, it can't be an overnight change. It would shock the system, like you said.
Well, I think Dan, like you mentioned, you wanted to see some bigger companies buy into it. I think we're starting to see that, which is the exciting part. So Ford is pushing really hard down the electric avenue, and so is Porsche, like VW, Porsche,
Mini,
Audi. That whole company, Mini.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a ton of these companies that are starting to do that, and they're preparing for it. So,
well, to kind of piggyback off that, when we talk about some of those companies, a couple of them, won't name them, but we all know, were bailed out, right? And part of them being bailed out is they had to follow whatever instruction was given to them in production with their business model going forward. So government legislature says, hey, you're going to start producing this. They're going to start producing it. So it's like, yeah, they're buying in, but is it due to what they were given? You know, is it freely done, or they're like, well, this is just contractual obligation, right? And that's what gets me.
Isn't GM and Chrysler?
Ford was the only one that wasn't bailed out, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, GM
Yeah,
and Chrysler was
yeah.
the big one.
That's funny that they're the only ones pushing electric. I never really thought about that.
Right.
There definitely has to be some lobbying going on there to
Most definitely.
keep them on the fossil fuel side of things for as long as possible.
I mean, as long as there's money, right?
Oh yeah, money talks.
I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit, like Steve was saying earlier. The bottom line is there's a ton of benefit of going towards electric vehicles, and we just need to see people starting to build the infrastructure and build the vehicles and test with it and reiterate on it. And whatever you think about California's policies, somebody has to start it somewhere and set that goal. If they don't reach it, they can always move it. But in any business and any companies, you have to set the goal first and then shoot for that. So that is what they're doing here. They're setting their finish line and seeing what they could do to make it.
Right.
No, I agree. Yeah. You definitely have to put the base goal of what you want to do, right? And then see how it works and adjust accordingly. I mean, makes complete sense. I'm just a huge fan of, I think it's the McLaren P1 and a couple other hypercars that use the electric engine.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah, that they use it to fill the power stopgap. I think that's an amazing addition to it. Obviously, I don't know how that's going to work for a normal daily driver that's going to get milk from King Soopers, but I think it's a good start.
Way to pull that back into Colorado.
King Soopers, yep. Did you guys pick out any Instagram posts that were interesting this week?
A lot of good photos on there. I mean,
I'll turn this right over to Matt because you can talk about something with IG and photos. Tell me. Go ahead. Take it away.
So first of all, like we were saying with the posts of the week, I was kind of scrolling through the photos that we get tagged in, and there's a lot of good photos on there, but nothing particularly caught my eye as being super out of the ordinary or worth talking about. But yeah, so if you have photographs that you want us to see and you want to try to get recognized on here, tag us in those photos because we'll start scrolling through that to kind of check out what we get tagged in. And then the other thing is, so we're recording this on Wednesday, the 30th. So starting October 1st, we're going to have our sponsored photographer, which has already been announced. His name is Carson at @out_perform_. So we're kind of featuring him for the month to kind of get him some extra exposure. Really talented photographer, does some great editing on his photos. And at some point in October, we're going to release one of his photos as a poster that can be purchased with the proceeds going to charity.
That's a really good thing. I mean, especially someone that's in the car community, local, and especially gives back to a charity. I mean, that's a win all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our stipulation there is that the photographer has to be Colorado local, and photographs have to be Colorado local as well.
Yep. So we're looking forward to giving those profits to charity, and also on the poster itself, we will acknowledge the photographer with their IG handle and their name, and then we'll have our CNC logo on that. It's probably at the bottom, I imagine, just kind of unobtrusive, like at the bottom of the poster.
Very small watermark.
Yeah, wherever it kind of fits into the image.
Yeah, right.
Is this something we're moving forward with more photographers down the road?
Yeah. Yeah, we do need to figure out kind of how we're going to handle that. I've seen a few people DM us to kind of nominate some other photographers. Luckily, I haven't seen anybody, slide in and say, "Ooh, feature me next month." So nobody's really looking to try to boost themselves. Luckily, it's all been, other people that they're trying to nominate. So we'll have to sit down and figure out how we want to handle that, whether it's nominations or we decide as a group.
Right.
How we want to
And
handle that going
we'll
forward.
welcome all the nominations, and we'll just kind of look at them, and we'll decide which ones we want to put forward. So don't be afraid to nominate your buddy that's a great photographer.
Yeah.
Or yourself. Like,
Or
there's
yourself.
no problems there.
Make a burner
if you're
account
a
and
great
nominate
photographer too.
Yeah. If you want to donate your photo for a poster for charity, I don't think we'll have any issues taking a self-suggestion.
That's the other thing too, is the photographers aren't making anything off of this. They don't get anything off of the poster. Now they still get to keep, obviously the photo is still theirs and
Right.
they have rights to that photo and everything. But
Right. We are just using it with permission.
Yep.
I mean, it's still pretty good exposure for them anyways,
Oh,
you know, like,
absolutely.
hey,
Yeah, I can't really think of a good place where I could go and get Colorado car posters.
Mhm.
Maybe going to individual photographers and seeing if they can make a print. But that's
Right.
if we can get into a monthly thing where it's easy to go find it and easy to go buy it, ship it to your house, that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of monitoring his followers just to see if we were having any influence. And in that first day and a half after I made that announcement post, he was up 10 followers, I think. So definitely showing some sort of influence there.
So
I can't wait for the calendar.
If you want 10 followers,
Yeah.
send us their photos.
Yes.
I mean, that's one
Nominate your
post. We're planning.
nominate your
we're planning to
buddy
do
or
several
nominate
posts.
yourself, and we won't guarantee 10, but you might get 10 followers.
You want 10 or under, because that's your goal.
Yeah. If you want 10 followers or less.
Yes.
no more.
I'm Errol Shrive. I'll paint any car for $99.99.
So yeah, keep an eye out for those posts. There'll be we'll make some dedicated posts with his photos, tagging him and such, and then we'll also throw some stuff up on our story. And those stories will get saved to our Instagram page, so you can go back and watch those. They'll probably stay up for about 6 months until there'll be like a kind of a rolling feed with those.
And
Excellent.
just tagging on to Matt's plug for posters and Instagram photographers. We are also taking designs for a t-shirt.
T-shirts.
So if you have a great design we do ask for a Colorado photo, Colorado car. Those are the things we kind of look for. Send your entry to t-shirt at coloradocarsandcoffee.com. We'll take a look at it, and we kind of go through the group and say, hey, what do you guys think? We're looking for an uncluttered design. It needs to be really just the car itself. But we're looking for anything right now, just to see what you have, and we'll move forward from that. But right now we have at least one t-shirt design. We've got some other entries. I know Xander had come up with one with I think an R32 VW by Rusty, and also Adam on our team has also worked on another photo with the FD RX-7 that was at Hot Import Nights.
Mhm.
So those might be entries as well as we take a look at each of those. But just another plug for if you want to, as an artist, as a designer, as a photographer, if you'd like to also send your entries to us. Again, any kind, if we start selling these t-shirts, all profits will go to charity. So yeah, another plug.
Also, if you guys want to send in, blown head gaskets, any of that stuff, just tag me in it, and you'll get a vote from me.
And that is Dan. His Instagram is Dan is Beast.
Should change it to Dan has engine knock.
Dan eats crayons.
Mac and cheese, baby.
Alrighty.
Cool. Word from
All
our
right.
sponsor.
Yes. Okay. Sponsor. So we have a new sponsor for October, and that is Paul Larson Allstate Insurance. They're located in Lakewood, Colorado. They've been serving the Denver metro area for 30 years, and they have lots of 5-star reviews, so go check them out. They specialize in auto, home, motorcycle renters. They also work closely with Haggerty Insurance. You can get your classic car, your custom cars covered with Haggerty through Paul Larson Allstate. So check them out. One of their benefits to Color Cars and Coffee members is that they're doing a raffle for $100 Visa gift card. To get entered, you have to have a no obligation quote from them, and they'll pick it out at the end of the month. They'll just pick one out randomly. So that's our new sponsor for October, and we'll have an introductory post up on the group and Instagram tomorrow. So check them out.
Cool.
And I'll turn it over to John, unless you guys have any final thoughts or topics or anything.
I do have a question. So with the vehicle, I don't know, submissions. So are we including any of our gifted like graphic design artists that want to do 3D renderings of their car, things like that? What's the scope in which we say no?
This is for T-shirts again.
Yes, correct.
I think the category is open at this point. So if you got a great
Cool
design,
t-shirts.
we will take a look at it. Yes.
Yeah, I think the only stipulation there would be original photograph or art. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, basically,
We are
don't go
asking
pull
for-
something
Makes
off of
sense.
Google.
Right.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying let's say some random person in, I don't know, frickin' Leadville has an awesome car, takes a picture of it, and he's really into graphic design, and he's able to, edit in a wide body, do some nice effects, and it looks really nice. Would that person be able to submit it?
Yeah, I don't
Sure.
see why
Yes.
not.
Yes.
You can submit anything you want.
Anything?
Well,
No
Alex,
Subarus.
please,
Yeah.
please, Alex.
Anything.
God damn it.
T-shirt at ColoradoCarsandCoffee.com. Anything.
Adding Alex to the distro.
Okay.
All right. I guess we'll start wrapping this up. Just a reminder to check out our Instagram at CO Cars and Coffee, our Twitter, our YouTube page, where you can also find stuff like our podcast here. Our Facebook page, obviously, the Facebook group, obviously, and our website, coloradocarsandcoffee.com, for the upcoming events and the local car community chat. Well, it's time for us to grab our coffee and hit the road. That's it for us here from Colorado Cars and Coffee. See you down the road, everyone.
All right.
Peace.
Good night.
See y'all later.
Bye.